Foxton was an average young man from families like you and ours. He came from a small town like Strathroy, where he worked in a regular job. For soldiers like William Foxton, every day was a struggle. William, although wounded, remained in charge of his men and led them with courage every day. He endured many wounds and fought them bravely. He died from his wounds on the 13th of November, 1918. He was awarded the Military Cross a year later.
Doing this project, I realized a lot of things about war that I didn't realize beforehand. I think that people view it as a statistic nowadays. They don't think about individual losses anymore. And it's hard, I think, to not think about them as individual people. But looking through all the files and looking at all these different people, I learned a lot that they were just like us, and that they were doing things for us. They were like my classmates and even teachers, but they weren't much older than me. And I think going through all this, I realized all those losses, and it touched me a lot more than I ever thought it would. My group looked over William Foxton. We read about his life and we read about his struggle, and I don't think it was until we did that we realized how much of a struggle it was every single day to go through it. He suffered numerous injuries to the neck and to the foot, and they weren't even all in one battle. He did it time and time again and kept going. He kept leading his men bravely, and he never gave up. Eventually he did lose his life, and I think that's a loss we have to remember.
William Cecil Doane went to Beale Tech in London when he was younger, and like any other teenager, he enjoyed sports like hockey and baseball, and after that he became a mechanic. He was like any regular guy, but when he was 19 he joined the Air Force. He was trained in St. Thomas, Trenton, and then was sent to BGS Jarvis. He was then promoted to corporal, but then died at the age of 22 while in a test flight. He's buried in Mount Pleasant Cemetery in London, Ontario. He lived at 162 Maple Street in London, Ontario, and was married to Eileen Effie Happy.
The person that we chose to do our research on was Frederick J. Lockwood. He was a military gunner in the First World War for the Canadian Army. He fought in many battles in Europe for the Canadian Army. The thing that made me want to research about him was that in his medical examination, the person that finally signed it off was John McCrae, who was a feature writer of Flanders Fields, which I found quite interesting.
My group focused on the four Adair brothers who lived in Strathroy. They all went off to war together, and only one of them returned. His name was Frederick. The other three brothers all passed away while they were overseas. The one brother joined the Air Force, and he went down in a plane crash. And the three other brothers all went into the Air Force. One of the brothers actually wrote a letter home thanking the Strathroy community for sending him a Christmas card, just appreciating the fact that people had still cared and took the time to actually send him a letter. And I just think it's really important to focus on this family because the sacrifice that they made, I mean, these guys weren't old guys by any means. They were young, only a few years older than any of us. And I just think that it's really important to remember exactly what they did for our country and appreciate the fact that three of those brothers never got to come home and their mom had to go on the rest of their life knowing that three of her boys died trying to defend our country.
Charles Franklin Adair, one of four brothers who went off in the World War II. He was a very athletic guy. He was just an average Canadian citizen who went off to war just like many other young men. He was a sergeant air gunner and he died at just 19 years of age, which just goes to show how quickly his lives can be taken and how many there were. 3 out of 4 of the brothers died when his one brother survived. His service number was R221011. Adair Boulevard was commemorated in Strathroy after the boys and what they did in the war. I thought the story was very interesting and inspiring because 4 brothers went off to war all of them at once, and this would be very hard, but this is just a regular occurrence. And 3 out of 4 of them died, which just goes to show the numbers and percentages of the men that died and gave their lives. Most people didn't come back after the war, and we just need to respect that and show that we care and that